On today's show, the Cavs beat the Washington Wizards on Tuesday night, and there are some encouraging things about how the Cavs are playing defense. Let's talk about that. Plus, I have injury updates on Darius, Garland, and Donovan Mitchell straight ahead on today's Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Also, the show is available on YouTube. So if you're watching this right now, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show, of course, is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. So the Cleveland Cavaliers got another win on Tuesday night. They beat the Washington Wizards in a game that was not very competitive. Washington, not a very good team, but they won this game 118-87. And what stood out to me was the way the Cavs play defense. And I think it's fair, if I'm going to talk about being disappointed in what the defense was throughout the month of November, I have to bring up how good the defense has been now over the last few games, because the Cavs in November were the 20th ranked defense in the NBA. They were not good. They kind of lost their identity on that side of the floor. They weren't very physical. They hadn't been able to stop teams beyond the three-point arc. Some of that was bad luck. Some of that was poor defense. It's never all one thing in the NBA. So since Friday, when they played in Atlanta and lost because they played horribly offensively, they've been playing some pretty solid defense. And Tuesday night was another example of this. They held Washington to 87 points. The game on Sunday night, they won that game against Boston because they played pretty well defensively. Even going back to Friday, like I said, they played bad on offense, but the defense was good enough to win. And over the last 3 games, and this is a very, very, very small sample size, so this needs to be taken with a grain of salt, but the Cavs are third in defensive rating in the NBA since Friday. Again, very small sample size, but it's been good enough to say, okay, this is what this team should look like. Now, they're not going to have the night defensively they had on Tuesday every single night. Like, their defensive rating against the Wizards was 84.6. So it's not going to be that low every night. It's not going to be that low all that often. They'd be one of the best defenses ever in the history of the sport if that's what they were, and they're not that. But it's a step in the right direction because they're playing with more physicality on that end. I think they're playing a little bit harder on that end. Yes, teams are missing shots on that end. Like Boston shot right around 35% from three-point range. Now, there's some other things the Cavs did that could be worth talking about there. Washington had a horrible night from beyond the arc. I think they missed like their first 12 threes on Tuesday night. And Washington's not a good basketball team, too. Like, that is part of this, but this is the type of defense, and the result is not always going to be this, but this is the type of defense that the Cavs need to be playing to be a championship caliber team. They need to bring this sort of defensive effort, this sort of defensive mindset, if you will, to the floor on a regular basis. Now, and I asked Donovan Mitchell about it, and he said they are playing more physical. They're doing these things better, but there will be slip-ups at times, and he's right. Like, you're not going to have every game. This isn't going to who they're be defensively. You can't do that over an 82-game season. But they need to be this type of team more often than not. I'm not talking about holding a team to 87 points. I'm talking about limiting the mistakes. I'm talking about increasing the physicality. I thought that this was a rather physical game. Now, there were a lot of whistles. There was a ton of fouls called in this game, and it really had no flow. Like, this was not a very enjoyable basketball game to watch. Like, if you're just a neutral observer, if you're not a fan of the Cavs, not a fan of the Wizards, you just wanted to watch an NBA Cup game that meant nothing on Tuesday night, this was not the game for you. There was no flow to it. It was very, very choppy, but I did think that it was a physical game. And that was something that I do think that Cavs fans should be happy about with this game in particular, because the Cavs were the physical team and they're going to need to play that way because that is part of the DNA of this roster. They've been a great offensive team so far this year. I believe they're second in the NBA in offense as I record this right now. But they have a roster that is built to defend and built to defend at a very high level. Even with two small guards, it is built to be a very, very good defensive roster because of Jarrett Allen, because of Evan Mobley, because of guys like Isaac Okoro and Dean Wade and Max Strus when he gets back. There are a lot of really good defenders on this team. So being 20th in defensive rating for a full month is not really an acceptable thing. I'm not saying they have to be first, but this is a team that is built to be a top 5, top 7 at worst defense. I think over the last few games, they've played like that. That is what they've played like. And that is, I think, something that is very encouraging because, one, tells me they recognize that there was a problem on that end. One of the concerns that I thought I had was that this team knows just how good it can be defensively because they've been really good defensively over the last couple of years. So when you get into that mindset, okay, we can just turn a switch and be good when we want to be good. Well, it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes with the really, really great teams, you can do that, but more often than not, you can't. The regular season exists for a lot of reasons. One of those reasons is to build proper habits. And going a month without playing very good defense at all is the opposite of building proper habits, right? Like you're talking about, okay, well, if this is going to be a team that is a championship contender, they can't be the 20th best defensive team in the NBA. That's not realistic. To be a true contender, you have to be a top 10 defensive team. And the Cavs should be that without problem. And after Tuesday night, they're back in the top 10 in defensive rating in the NBA, at least as I record this. There are still, I think, a couple of games going on that maybe that could change that, but I would be surprised if it does. But that is the thing that I think it's to be the most encouraged about. Because, yeah, Washington's not good, but I'm not only speaking about Tuesday. Tuesday was the most impressive one because just the jarringly low point total that the Wizards had at 84, but they were good on defense on Sunday against Boston. And that was a much stiffer test, but I thought they had a really good game on that side of the floor. They were good on Friday despite a loss in Atlanta. They're starting to string together these performances. Now, we'll see what they look like on Thursday when Denver comes to town. I think that is a very interesting matchup. I think that is something I'm very excited to see how they defend Denver and what things look like when they're defending a team that operates through a big guy the way the Denver Nuggets do with Nikola Jokic. So that'll be something I'm very, very interested in seeing. But I have no reason to believe they can't keep up this type of defensive effort, that they can't keep up this type of defensive performance, because this should just be the start of a good defensive run for the Cavs. They're not going to be great on that end every night. Just like every night, they're not going to hit 18 threes and shoot 45% from deep. No one does that. You can't be that every night. But just like they have been one of the best three-point shooting teams, I think they're first in percentage still in three-point shooting percentage right now. There's no reason why they can't be one of the best defensive teams. They've got the talent for it. They've got the roster for it. And I think we're starting to see signs that they're not going to be content flipping the switch and just wanting to turn on being a defensive team when they feel like time. This was a really good sign to me that they know, okay, if we're going to be great, we have to start playing better defense now in December. We can't wait until March and try and figure it out then, because these habits matter. Building habits throughout the regular season matters a lot, especially when it is part of the identity of this team. I think it starts with being physical. I think it starts with being physical on switches. That was something that a number of Cavaliers mentioned after this game, is that they felt like they were more physical at the point of attack. They were more physical when the Wizards set screens. That's where it starts. And if it starts there, I'm pretty confident it's going to finish well because of how good the bigs are for the Cavs. So I do think that while we won't know for sure, and there's no way to know for sure until it actually happens, But I think what we've seen these last 3 games on the defensive end of the floor for the Cavs, I think that is something that is the start of, okay, we've kind of screwed around for a month on that end of the floor. It's time to start being a serious defensive group. I think that's what we're seeing right now. So we'll see if that can keep up. But there were a couple of injury scares on Tuesday night against Washington. Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, how are those guys doing? I'll tell you next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is my go-to ticket marketplace. Game Time should be your go-to ticket marketplace as well. I like Game Time because it's not just about tickets to sports. Maybe, there are some championship games in college football going on this weekend, depending what part of the country you are, who you're a fan of. I know if you're in Ohio, you might not love it, but there will be college football playoff games coming up. And if you're going to want to be in the building for those, one of those might be taking place in this state. I don't know what the committee's going to do. But if you want to go to that, if you want to go to a basketball game here in town, if you want to go to football when that's back in town with the Cleveland Browns, who I believe they're on the road this week, but they will be back home soon for a game against Kansas City, you're going to want to be in the building. Game Time is the app that's going to get you in that building. I like Game Time because it takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I don't like being surprised at the last minute with how much money I'm going to have to pay for my tickets. So what I do is I toggle on the all-in pricing feature, and then I'm not surprised by taxes and fees and all that other stuff. I know exactly what I'm going to pay throughout the entire process, and you can too with Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. All you have to do, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you have to do, pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Plus, sign up today and get a $50 instantly when you play $5. Don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also does put their members first. So all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. And when picks hit, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. Prize Picks also does offer Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawal into your account this season. So sign up today. Like I said, get $50 instantly when you play $5. Don't even need to win to receive that bonus. They also do offer some great weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday, where each Tuesday Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value to your lineup. So what you need to do, download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the Prize Picks app, use code LOCKEDONNBA, and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show everywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, everywhere else. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. There were a couple of injury scares for the Cavs on Tuesday night. It's never a good thing when you see the 2 all-star guards in the backcourt both need to leave the floor with injuries. So first, Donovan Mitchell. Both injuries happened in the third quarter. Donovan Mitchell ran into a Jonas Valanciunas screen and kind of just let his right arm dangle afterwards. It was clear that he was shaken up by it. The Cavs called a timeout. Donovan Mitchell left the floor and went right to the locker room with a couple members of the Cavs training staff. So Mitchell then, a few minutes later, after I would kind of say a tense couple of minutes, where a lot of people in the arena are holding their breath, he emerges from the tunnel, goes, sits down on the bench, and then a few minutes after that, he's back in the game. After the game, Donovan did speak with media, just said it was a stinger, not something that necessarily is that big of a deal. So that is something that I think Cavs fans, the Cavs as an organization, can breathe easy about that one. The other injury to talk about was Darius Garland. So oddly enough, Jonas Valanciunas was involved in both these plays. This one, Garland the Cavs were playing offense. Evan Mobley had the ball. He tried to throw a pass over the top to Garland. Garland went up to try and go get it. Valanciunas' elbow hit the back of Garland's head. Garland was down on the floor, did not partake in a couple of possessions. The Cavs ended up, Evan Mobley took a take foul to get a stoppage in place so they could, attend to Garland. He did leave the game. He did not return. The official update was that he was being evaluated for a head injury, which of course makes you worry. Oh man, he's going to have a concussion. Like that's never a good thing. It's never something you want to see happen, obviously. After the game, Kenny Atkinson was asked about it. He said Darius seemed fine to him in the locker room and that he really didn't have much concern at all. And then when we were in the locker room after the game, Darius Garland was there. He seemed like his normal self. He spoke with the media, which I took as kind of the best sign. If there was any concern that Darius Garland had a concussion or that it was something more serious, I really don't think he would have met with the media. You don't see guys that have legitimate head injuries like that just go and meet with media. He said he's fine. Not a big deal. I'm sure it didn't feel good. I'm sure neither of these injuries felt good, but I wouldn't be concerned about either of them. It was a great sign that Mitchell was able to come back into the game. And I do wonder if this would not have been such a blowout in the Cavs' favor if Garland would have been able to come back in. He seemed fine after the game. So that I think is a great sign. Elsewhere, injury news, Dean Wade did make his return. I think he missed the last 6 games with an ankle injury. He was actually the only member of the Cavs on Tuesday night to not score. He missed, I think he was 0 of 5 from the floor. He looked okay defensively. Offensively, just the shot looked off. He did not look what you would anticipate Dean Wade looking like on offense. And that's fine. I mean, he looked like a guy who had missed 2 weeks. And that's who he is right now. So we'll see if he looks better on Thursday. Historically, I remember, I don't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago when Dean missed some time, came back, and JB Bickerstaff was asked, what did you think of Dean Wade in his return? And he goes, I think Dean got some good cardio in, where he didn't shoot the basketball very well. He didn't do much. You could make the case, and while I think Dean was helpful defensively, you could make the case he got some good cardio in on Tuesday night against the Wizards. But it was still a boost for the Cavs to have him back. Ty Jerome also did not play. He was out with an illness tonight. I do want to talk a little bit about the offense the Cavs had on Tuesday night. This was a game, no one scored 20 points for the Cavs, which is a bit of a rarity, but they did have 7 guys in double figures. So even on a night where offensively there wasn't a ton of flow, I thought they looked a little disjointed at times. There were stretches where they just didn't seem to have focus on that end of the floor. One, I thought it was really good that never transferred over to defense. Like there was never a moment where they stopped playing good defense. But it was also good to see 7 guys reach double figures. And Isaac Okoro had 9. Like it very easily could have been 8 of the 9 guys that were in the rotation on Tuesday night could have gotten to double figures. Dean Wade's the only one that was in the rotation that didn't score. And then, you even look at Jalen Tyson, who got some minutes. Craig Porter Jr. got some minutes. Tristan Thompson. Everyone, I believe, like I said, everyone other than Dean Wade that played scored. So I did like that there was some balance offensively on a night where they didn't necessarily need heavy lifting from anybody. You don't need that in a 31-point win, but it was nice to see some other guys get involved. It was nice. I thought Sam Merrill had a very good game on that end of the floor. I liked what I saw from Karis LeVert. But of course, I'm a little bit higher on Karis LeVert than I think a lot of people are. And Evan Mobley looked really good on offense too. He and Donovan Mitchell tied for the team lead with 19 points apiece. So that was definitely a really good thing to see. But when the offense wasn't working, the defense was. And I actually kind of think that's the best thing that you can say about tonight. So the Cavs are now more than a quarter into the season. That means they should have an identity. Well, I asked Kenny Atkinson, what is that identity? I want to talk about his answer next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Chime. It is the holiday season. It is a great time of the year, but we've all been there during the holidays, right? Doing a little bit of shopping, maybe splurging on an item or two, and we might maybe end up spending a little bit more than we should. Well, I'm here to tell you that you can take control of your finances by using a Chime checking account with features like no monthly or maintenance fees, fee-free overdraft up to $200, or getting paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. You can learn more at chime.com/NBA. Chime helps with fee-free overdraft up to $200. So your next deposit then is applied to your balance. You can get spotted on a debit card, purchases, and cash withdrawals as well. No monthly fees or maintenance fees, and over 50,000 fee-free ATMs. Plus, Chime has spotted members over 32 billion in transactions through Spot Me. Friends give friends a boost. Eligible members get complimentary boosts to temporarily increase a friend's Spot Me limit. When you give a boost, they can boost you back to temporarily raise your limit. So set up a direct deposit in your Chime account. After a qualifying direct deposit of $200 or more, Chime will notify you to enroll in Spot Me. With an activated debit card, Chime will spot you up to $200 on debit card purchases and cash withdrawals. Plus, your next direct deposit is then applied to your negative balance. Chime never charges overdraft fees for using Spot Me. So enjoy the holidays while keeping your financial goals on track with Chime. Open your account in 2 minutes at chime.com/NBA. That's Chime, CHIME.com/NBA. Chime feels like progress. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank NA or Stride Bank NA, members FDIC. Spot Me eligibility requirements and overdraft limits do apply. Direct deposit timing depends on submission of payment file. Boosts are available to eligible Chime members enrolled in Spot Me and are subject to monthly limits. Fees apply at out-of-network ATMs and for OTC withdrawals. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Befriend, tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. So I asked Kenny Atkinson after the game on Tuesday, just how does he describe the identity of this Cavs team? Because they are more than a quarter of the way into the season. They should know who they are as a team right now. And I was sort of expecting an answer on the floor. You know, like, oh, we play with great pace, or we're a really good offensive team, but we're still working on that defense, or maybe try and loop in defense as it. And he went to just like the connectivity. He essentially spoke about how he thinks that this is a really connected group from the top of the roster to the bottom of the roster, that it's sort of a special group in the way that they are all connected together. That he said that's the word that keeps coming back to him. They're connected in the locker room. It's everybody. And says there's a special chemistry, and it's not something that he said he's saying lightly. Like, that could be a little bit of coach speak. That's just, oh, we're a connected group. But to me, it does come across as this group genuinely does like each other. They genuinely get along in that locker room, at least in the interactions that I see on a regular basis. And I think that is something that translates to the floor. I don't think that this group would be as good as it is if there was any sort of friction going on in the locker room right now. I don't think that there is. I think that this Cavs team has the opportunity. I'm not going to go there and say they are a special group yet because it's December 4th, but they have an opportunity to be a special group. And I think that is sort of, I think Kenny is spot on with his description of what their identity is to him. I think that is exactly where that is. And that's something I'm going to write a little bit more about. And you can check that out over at my Substack, The Inside Shot. I'm also going to talk kind of, because the one other thing that's interesting to me is Kenny mentioned last week that teams are it's pretty indicative of who you are as a team early in the season. Like, that matters more than who you are in the middle and at the end in terms of how good you actually are. The Cavs are obviously the best team in basketball right now by record. And it's interesting to see how they stack up with the previous teams that have won a title, because they are now 20-3, 19-3 through 22 games. The teams that have won titles over the last 10 years, Boston was 17-5. Denver was 14-8. So that's not great. Golden State was 19-3. Milwaukee was 14-8 coming off of the COVID bubble season. So that was a little weird. The Lakers were 19-3. That was the COVID season, but that was before COVID actually happened. The Raptors were 18-4. The Warriors, their last title, were 16-6. The Warriors, the 2017 title, were 19-3. The Cavs were 15-7. And the 2015 Warriors were 20-2. So the Cavs fit in that group. That, to me, is something to be excited about. And that, to me, is a very interesting thing. I'm going to be writing a little bit more about that, like I said, over my Substack. So if you want to check that out, a link is in the episode description to go subscribe and read that. But I do want to say thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review and be a friend. Tell a friend about the Locked On Cavs podcast. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure they're subscribed. And if you're watching on YouTube right now, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I will be back tomorrow. Spencer Davies set to join the show. We're going to talk about what we like, what we don't like about the Cavs through the first quarter of the season. Maybe, just maybe, look ahead a little bit to that game on Thursday night with the Denver Nuggets. So keep it locked right here with Locked On Cavs.